Okay, we're there. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Brown. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor Tasek. How are you?
I
We
can't
can't
hear
hear you. You're muted.
I am muted, but I'm doing really well, and it's just
Good.
beautiful over here. So,
Yeah, what's it like on the island? It was a nice sunny day here today, although they say rain is coming.
yeah, I've heard the same thing. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous day. Yeah, took a long walk, and tomorrow the beach is reopened. They've been closed for 2 months outside where I live, because of the Brant geese that are in migration, and they shore up here for 2 months. So tomorrow we get to go back on the beach with dogs. So,
Oh,
yay.
terrific. That's great. That's great. Good.
Rabbi Dan, it was so amazing to see so many people at shul today to pick up challahs.
It really was. It was incredible. It was hard to recognize people with their masks on, but it was great to see smiling eyes, if not faces as well.
Just those a few moments of connection were worth everything. I felt like a machaya, like I was rejuvenated to just be with people. So thanks for everyone. If you're watching, for coming. It was great to see you.
So let's begin as we welcome Shabbat.
Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet hachim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet hachim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet hachim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Eilech hamda libi, chusana ve'al natitalem. 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 Eilech hamda libi, chusana ve'al natitalem.
This may be wasted on people that I'm saying it to, but I'm hearing from someone that the service is not working on TELUS right now. I'm not sure why, and if you can see this, then it's irrelevant to you because you've found a place for us, which is on YouTube or on our temple website. Oh, it just started working. Okay, good. Yeah, we were a little late pressing the button. Sorry about that. But it's good to get that feedback in real time. If we were in the sanctuary, people would say the microphone's off, or we can't hear you, or something. I once started a service and I forgot to put on my talit and my yarmulke. People were looking at me funny, and I was looking at them funny. I didn't know why, and then I realized that it was essentially the version of the emperor with no clothes, but the rabbinic version of that. So let's continue as we sing unto God a new song, Psalm 96, Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash.
Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch shemo, basru miyom liyom yeshuato, sapru v'goyim kevodo, b'chol ha'amim nifleotav, ki gadol Adonai. Hulal meyod norahu al kol Elohim ayayay yadai dadai yadai dadai yadai dadai yadai dadai yadai dadai yadai dadai
Now everybody's telling me they can see it, which is great. I get to see who's watching. So I could give shout outs, but I don't want to out people that they're watching services, but I'm glad you're watching and hopefully participating. We're going to continue as we welcome the Shabbos angels. And as we do that, and with this, and then following it, L'cha Dodi, these two prayers in our Kabbalat Shabbat portion of our service are both rootedly mystical prayers, Kabbalistic prayers. And I'm going to talk more about that during the Drash tonight, but I want to acknowledge and recognize, as we said in our email that went out yesterday, the tragedy that took place in Israel on Lag BaOmer last night in Mount Meron, which is in the northern part of Israel around the city of Sfat. The hundreds, thousands plus of Jews, Orthodox Haredi Jews that were gathered there, were there for a number of reasons, which I'll talk about in my drash, but they were there also from a Kabbalistic yearning and a connection with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, whose tomb is at the site where the festival took place and where the tragedy took place as well. And it is in that region, it is in that space that these prayers had found their meaning and in some cases their authorship. The idea that on Shabbos we are not alone, that we are visited by angels, that the earthly world is transcended, and we have spirits that are with us. That's the mystical part of Jewish tradition. I'm going to try to explain it a little bit more later in our service. But as we sing these songs, I want us to think about, and if we can, acknowledge the great pain that exists within the ultra-Orthodox community and within the entire Jewish world at this time, this tremendous tragedy and accident that took place, and to recognize that the Jews who are mourning, all of us, of course, are mourning, but those that are part of that community experience it through this lens, in addition to the lenses that we all experience it through this additional lens of a mystical view of the world, and Shalom Aleichem, that they should be visited by the angels that bring them comfort at this time. So let's continue.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Bachem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Malach, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeidchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Nekabela Shamor Bezachor Bedibor Echad Hishmianu El Hamiuchad Adonai Echad Ushmo Echad L'Shemo Tiferet V'Letehila Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Nekabela Likrat Shabbat Lechu V'Neilcha Ki Mekor HaBeracha Mirosh Mikedem Nesucha Sof Maaseh B'Machshava Techila Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Nekabela Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha ומצאים מתוך ההפכה, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייכם לך ג'ודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת nekabela.
We continue now with Chatzi Kaddish as we make a separation between the Kabbalat Shabbat portion of our service as we get ready and in the mode for Shabbos, and now into our tefillot, our prayers of gratitude and appreciation. And there's Rabbi Brown, speaking of gratitude and appreciation. Lots of gratitude and appreciation for Rabbi Brown and Cantor Tassel. And so we'll continue.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'alma divrach yutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala, u'v'zman kariv, v'yimeru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'olam olam me'almaya, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, Shemei Dekudesha Barichu, Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiram ve'alma ve'imeru. Amen. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
If you're standing at home, you may be seated as we continue with Ma'ariv Aravim. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, B'chochma Poteach She'arim, U'vidvuna Meshana Itim, U'machalif et Hazmanim, U'misader et HaKochavim B'mishmeroteam Barakia Kirtzono, Borei Yom V'layla Gol'el Or Mipnei Choshech, V'choshech Mipnei Or. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid imlo chalenu leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, amcha ahavta, Torah mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochbeinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chokecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha, le'olam, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu ve'yorech yameinu, uvahem nehege yom balayla, ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu, le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
Amen. We'll read together this reading. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקי הים לפני Moshe Miriam, Zelianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'ge'alo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
We take time to acknowledge the security that is our shelter of our home, or the shelter of God's presence, the shelter of family, the shelter of love that keeps us feeling secure and safe. We give thanks for that feeling of security as we sing together these words of Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Amen.
Continue with Vishamru.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. Yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash. Yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat, yum bada bim bum bye, Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
We prepare now for the Amidah. You can rise in your home if you want, but certainly we all rise in our hearts as we step forward to prepare to offer the prayer that comes from within, the prayer certainly of our heritage, of these words that appear before us, but also the prayer that comes with the intention of being present and coming before God to offer what's inside of us. So let's join together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol, v'zocher chastei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geulat ivnei v'neihem l'ma'an shemo be'ahava. Melech ozer Moshiach magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayim etim atah rav lehoshia, morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayim etim berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishnei afar. Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, u'midol melech, melech memid u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman hatala hachayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hametim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yoladucha salah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Amen.
Amen. You may be seated at home as we continue together.
Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, ritzei v'menuchateinu, kadshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'tein chelkeinu b'toratecha, Sabeinu mitohuvecha, Besamcheinu b'shuatecha, B'taher libenu, B'taher libenu, B'taher libenu le'ovdecha bemet, B'taher libenu, B'taher libenu, B'taher libenu le'ovdecha bemet. V'anchilenu Adonai Eloheinu, Be'ahava v'ratzon Shabbat kodeshecha, Be'anuchu v'Yisrael, Mekadshei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Be'amcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel, U'tehila ratzon, Tamid avodat Yisrael, Yisrael Amecha. El karov lechol korov panei el vadecha vechoneinu shefoch ruchacha aleinu v'techazen eineinu Beshuvecha leTzion. Verachamim. Baruch atah Adonai. Amachazir Shechinato LeTzion, LeTzion, LeTzion.
So today was the first day since before the pandemic that I packed a lunch. I was at the shul for the whole working day today for the first time. I've been plenty of times here and there to pick something up, to go do something, but I was there all day, and partially because of the, as I mentioned at the beginning, the service is a really wonderful opportunity for our Challah Shabbat drive-through. It was so nice to see so many of you. But there was something really strange and wonderful and filled me with gratitude of packing a lunch. It was something about a routine, something that had been such a normal part of the weekday and workday for me, and sensing it once again, that filled me with a bit of happiness and hope, and also just gratitude for the simplest things in life, to know that we will return to them, and also just that little things can bring gratitude and joy, and they're all over, and sometimes they catch us by surprise, which is always lovely, but sometimes it takes just a little bit of attention seeking and looking for them, and we'll see that those little moments are all around us. So let us give thanks as we sing together Ve'al Kulam.
Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yitromam Shimcha Malkeinu Tamid le'olam va'ed ve'yokulam Yitbarach v'yitromam Yitbarach v'yitromam Shimcha Malkeinu Tamid le'olam va'ed V'cholchem yoducha salah V'halalu et shimcha be'emet Ha'el Yeshuateinu ve'ezrateinu salah Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Nae Lehodot. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lecho hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim leolam. B'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol leid v'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim leolam. Baruch atah Adonai Hamavarech et amo Yisrael B'shalom.
Amen. Take a moment now for our own silent prayer.
Yihu l'ratzon imrei fi vegion libi lefanecha. Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri v'goali, v'goali.
We turn our prayers now toward prayers of healing for those in our community for whom we think and love and pray for their well-being and healing. And by extension, our family and our friends and all of those who suffer. We think, of course, of those who are injured and recovering and struggling for health and healing in Israel from that terrible incident at Mount Hermon. Of course, we also are thinking of all of those who are suffering with COVID in particular, thinking of those in India who are suffering with such devastating loss and illness there. So as we hold all of them in our hearts, we do want to, of course, make mention of those with whom we have a personal connection. And so I'll share the names of our list for Mishaberach, the Shabbat. We think of Judy Steiner Lossberg, Paula and Burns Simpson, Ava Lighton, Karen Bernstein, Chaya Sachav Bat Yehuda Valea, Lana James, Yana Timko, Dr. Dimitri Zanazin, Lynn Shabo, Shayna Stawicki, Elliot Pohl, Sanford Cohen, Jean Angus, Sarah Chiachi, Kim Bennett, Sarah Bat Avraham Basara, Igor Ilyasov, Ed Ozer, David Shlomo Gorney, Ronnie Goldberg, Andrea Jarzbiak, and Neil Tapley. And I invite you at home, if there are other names you'd like to mention out loud or in your heart, to do so. And together we'll join in this prayer of healing.
Mishabeirachavotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishabeirachimotenu mekor habracha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Cantor Tausig. Thank you, Rabbi Brown. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Wanted to share some quick announcements with you before we continue with our service. A reminder that tomorrow morning, our interim cantor, Cantor Shani Cohen, is going to join us for the first time as part of our clergy team to lead services with myself and Rabbi Brown. We've been flipping pages via Zoom to try to get each other familiar with each other. You know, we have such a fluid and seamless connection with Cantor Tausig. We've been doing this for so long. I can literally anticipate when she's going to go to the next line so I can move the slide. It might take us some time to get there with Cantor Cohen, and it's so weird to do this via Zoom, but we're glad that we have the opportunity to share in worshiping together, and for you have the opportunity to get to know her a little bit, at least through the screen. Join us after the service for our virtual Kiddush. Cantor Cohen is going to stay online with us, and it's a different Zoom link, and have a chance to meet and greet, ask questions, and get to know her a little bit, and for her to get to know us. Tomorrow night at 7:30 is our virtual Havdalah. Join us for that. That's also via Zoom. And on Monday and Wednesday, we have Morning Minyan, 7:45. That's also via Zoom. Torah study is also tomorrow morning, 8:30, and Talmud class continues on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock with Rabbi Brown. And as we've been mentioning, our Taste of Judaism course begins this Tuesday. There's still time to sign up. It is for those that are, I like to say, Jew curious. Come and learn about God, Torah, and the Jewish people in 3 nights. It's for those that maybe didn't pay any attention in Hebrew school or never went to Hebrew school because they weren't Jewish, or because they never went to Hebrew school, or you're in a relationship with somebody who maybe never went to Hebrew school or did go to Hebrew school, or whatever it is. We're excited to be able to offer this in such an open way through the wonders of Zoom and the internet. So we hope that you can join us for that. So those are the announcements. I do want to acknowledge again that this Shabbat service takes place in a different context than what I had thought it would yesterday. And so as our thoughts and our hearts are in Israel, I'm reminded of the quote that while I am in the West, my heart is in the East. As we think of our community in mourning and in prayer right now. A quote first from the book of Leviticus. From the day on which you bring the sheaf of elevation offering, the day after the Sabbath, You shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. If that doesn't quite make sense to you, I'm going to try to explain. We are currently in the period of what's called the counting of the Omer, which is commanded in our Parsha for this week, Parshat Emor. In fact, for many of us, as I mentioned, tragically, we are more aware of the exact day of the Omer in which we are currently than we have ever been before. Yesterday was Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer. In Hebrew, letters can also be numbers, and so the letters Lamed Gimel can combine to form 30 and 3, so 33, if you're using Hebrew letters as numbers, which spells the word Lag, and so Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer. It was on this special day when, according to legend, a plague which had killed thousands of students of the great Rabbi Akiva was finally lifted. Lag BaOmer is also the anniversary of the death of one of the most fascinating sages of the Talmud, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, Shimon Bar Yochai is a truly fascinating character, a mystic. Jewish tradition teaches that he wrote the great work of Jewish mysticism known as the Zohar. Today, we know other scholarly opinions that the work was actually written most likely by a 13th century Spanish mystic named Moshe de Leon. But we'll credit Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai for also elevating that kind of teaching. Tradition teaches that Shimon Bar Yochai hid from the Romans in a cave for years, burying himself in sand so that he would not wear out his clothes. My father, a clothing salesman, would have been, I don't know, either gratified or horrified by that. It could go either way. That he and his son spent those years in the cave in mystical studies. And finally, when they learned that the Romans had ceased searching for them, they came out of the cave, and there they saw a man going to work, and at that moment became so angry that the man was not studying Torah that their eyes caused the entire world, or everything that they could see, to catch fire. And God, seeing this and seeing that Shimon Bar Yochai had used this moment of freedom to destroy the world before him, sent Shimon Bar Yochai back into the cave as though he had learned nothing, and said, "Are you trying to destroy my world?" to Shimon Bar Yochai. A year passed, and when they came out of the cave a second time, they saw a man preparing for the Sabbath, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son found peace. It's a complicated story. I'm not sure exactly if I like the lesson that it teaches on either side of that. As we saw in the horrific videos last night, tens of thousands of religious Jews ascend to the cave in Mount Meron, where he is, or on Mount Meron, where he is buried. His life and his teachings, they transform the way that we see the world, or that they see the world, the way that ultra-Orthodox Jews, Kabbalistic Jews experience the divine. And so as we saw in these terrible and tragic videos, but it's a gathering, by the way, that has been taking place for decades, they sing and they dance and they celebrate life, and they celebrate those mystical teachings. And tragically, last night, dozens were killed. Hundreds injured when a stampede erupted after what we think was the collapse of a stage in the midst of the crowd that was packed shoulder to shoulder. Now, Lag BaOmer traditionally is a day of celebration. Outside of that gathering, it's also a day of haircuts. For little boys, when they are 3 years old, the pruning of their hair is connected with the pruning of trees. It's a day for weddings, the only time really you can get married for traditional Jews between Pesach and Shavuot. If you are in Israel, whether you're religious or not, it's a day for campfires. And if you go to Israel during this period of time, you will see all over Israel campfires on the mountainsides and potatoes roasting in them and corn roasting in them. And this year it was the first public celebration in Israel since the start of COVID and since the reduction of the lockdowns and the mask mandates in Israel. It was really a time for release and celebration, not only for Orthodox Jews, but for all of Israel. And now, sadly, it's going to be remembered for tragedy, one of the largest peacetime mass casualty events in Israel's history. And we mourn the loss of life. We'll say Kaddish in a few minutes for the 2 Canadians, Shraga Gestetner and Dovid Steinmetz, both of Montreal, who died at the event. And we'll pray for those who are injured and pray that they recover both in body and in spirit. The people who gathered at Mount Meron were ultra-Orthodox Jews. The place they gathered is the center of mystical Judaism, or Kabbalah, not far from the northern city of Tzfat. It will be of no surprise to those listening or watching this sermon that I am not a mystic or an ultra-Orthodox Jew. I don't even play one on TV. There are many flavors of Judaism, and those are not my taste. But on this tragic Shabbat, I want to feel closer to our brothers and sisters in Israel. I want to feel closer to the ultra-Orthodox community, which honestly, though I love shtisel, I feel quite removed from. And in truth, I'm hoping that we will all feel a bit closer to them tonight. So with that intent, it seems to me that the best way to honor their lives, the lives of those who died, and to pray for the healing of those injured is to teach a bit of, it's our Torah, but their Torah. Maybe even a bit of Torah that we would not have learned were it not for this tragedy teaching all of us of the importance of Lag BaOmer to ultra-Orthodox Jews. And so in their honor and memory, I want to share this mystical teaching about this time in the Jewish calendar. Over the centuries, the counting of the Omer has taken on a mystical quality, which in part explains why 100,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews chose that particular day, this particular day, to gather at the tomb of one of their sages. And to just go back a little bit to stuff that may never have been covered in Hebrew school. The Omer is the 49-day period of counting from the second day of Pesach to the first day of Shavuot, the holiday that recognizes the giving or the receiving of Torah. And according to Jewish law and tradition, each day of this period must be ritually counted, just like the verse that I quoted at the beginning of this drash. Now, like all Jewish rituals, there are rules. We have lots of rules. The day must be counted at night, which we'll do in a moment, after sunset, and with the appropriate blessing. You cannot name the day of the Omer until it is counted with a blessing. Now, technically, according to the Bible, according to Torah, an Omer is simply a biblical measure of grain. And so what we're counting the days between the first grain offering of the year and the new meal offering given at the peak of the harvest season, 50 days later. The whole thing is simply a way of counting down to the harvest season, and there's an app for that now. But over the years, as Shavuot has morphed from a harvest festival to that holiday that celebrates the day the Jews received Torah at the foot of Mount Sinai, Jewish philosophers and commentators have seized on this calendrical link between Pesach and Shavuot to push for a more robust religious underpinning. And here, even the Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics, have further added meaning to what before was simply the marking of time. According to Jewish mystical teachings, each of the 7 weeks of the counting of the Omer is associated with one of the 7 sfirot, the mystical manifestations of divine characteristics of God. And each day within the week corresponded to the same succession of sfirot. For example, and bear with me because it's going to get really Kabbalistic here for a moment, and that might not be your jam because things are going to get weird. But I promise there's a point to this at the end. So the 7 sfirot are chesed, which is loving kindness. So these again are attributes or aspects of God. Gevurah, strength, discipline, and justice. Tiferet, compassion and harmony. Netzach, endurance. Chod, which is humility. Yesod, which is bonding or foundation or intimacy. And Malchut, sovereignty, nobility, and kinship. Those are 7 aspects or characteristics of God. Now, Chesed, the first one, lives closest to the realm of the Ein Sof, and Malchut is the Sphirah that lives closest to our world. This is a snapshot, sort of a ladder which knits us to God, through which the portal of divine action passes through our world. It's how one rises in holiness. And so, the first week of Omer counting in this system is considered the week of Chesed. And then each day within that week takes on a secondary attribute. So on the first day, one would consider the attribute of loving kindness within loving kindness, within Chesed. And on the second day, the attribute of justice or strength within Chesed or loving kindness. And then harmony within loving kindness. You see how these are building on each other. So each Sphirah has its own companion, which is part of the other Sphirot. Relationship building within loving kindness, and nobility or majesty within loving kindness, and on it goes. And that process is repeated with the second week, which is the week of Gevurah. And so until the week of Malchut completes the 49 days. And this is confusing. I'm sure you can Google all of this. Now, there are actually traditional meditations and blessings that go along with thinking through the Omer in this way. And there's a whole theology of divine reunification. But for many people, the central idea, the Kabbalistic mystical notion, is to meditate on the attributes of the respective day. What would it mean to incorporate endurance into our acts of loving kindness? How do we show nobility within our own humility? How do we give discipline to our compassion? You see that there is a structure to this. It's far beyond 12 steps. It's 49 steps and steps upon steps. And if you're confused or a bit lost, welcome to mysticism. Honestly, I think part of the point of Jewish mysticism is to get us lost so that we'll look to it to find our way out, to find help. But all of this actually relates, I think, in a deeply meaningful way to what we have been going through in these endless days of COVID, when every day seems to run together. As I call it in our home, it's Blur's Day. Every day is Blur's Day. So here, the mystical lens for counting the Omer may actually help us get through to what we hope is the light at the end of the tunnel, which our health professionals say could be somewhere around August or September. How do we get from here to there without losing our minds? Our tradition offers us, and the Jewish mystics would implore us, to replace the emptiness of counting day upon day upon day with the optimistic conviction that each day is not just some holding unit of time, but that each day actually holds the promise of a distinct and unique virtue in its own right. After all, no 2 days of the Omer hold the same characteristics. Instead, each day we are called upon to act with some new understanding of the world, some new understanding of ourselves. Now, the Reformed Jew in me still thinks that the counting of the Omer is just a measure of wheat onto which some bored or, well, I'll just leave it at bored, mystical rabbis centuries ago fostered a whole system of meaning. But to honor the memory of those of our Jewish brethren who died or were injured yesterday, I'm going to open my mind. I'm going to open my mind a bit, and I hope you will as well, and allow myself to be less rational and more mystical, more in awe, more looking for signs and wonders, if only for the remaining 15 days of the Omer, or maybe for the remainder of COVID. To allow myself to be comforted by the lesson that I live in a Judaism in which time doesn't pass without comment, in which each moment must be filled with and mined for meaning. A Judaism that says, long before it became a cliche, count each day and make each day count. So mystical or not, ultra-Orthodox Jew or liberal or Reform, Jewish or other, as we go from one Blur's Day of COVID to another Blur's Day of COVID, this teaching resonates with me. Each week must have a theme, and each day within that week, a deeper connection to that theme. And when we do this, no day is Blur's Day. Every day, if we pay attention, is unique and special and holy and sacred and filled with meaning. May their memories be a blessing. May the lessons of their lives continue to teach and inspire our own. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful message of memory. And also, I didn't know you were such a mystic, Rabbi Dan.
It would be a mistake to think I'm a mystic.
It's in
Sometimes.
there. I can feel it. It's good.
A little bit of mystic.
So, my friends, as we prepare to end our service, we will continue by doing that exact act of counting the Omer again. As Rabbi Dan mentioned, we know that we are very aware of where we stand in this counting as we prepare to announce the 34th day of the Omer. I declare for all of us, Hineni muchanu mezuman l'kayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haOmer. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer, and I'll invite you to say with me this blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom arba'a u'shloshim yom, shehem arba'a shavuot v'shisha yamim ba'omer. Today is 34 days, which are 4 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. I'll invite you at home, if you choose, to rise now for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teif gdula le'otzer b'reishit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, v'gar aleinu k'cho hamonam. I think I'm totally shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchel kenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'cho hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech mochei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Shehu noteh shamayim be'osei haaretz u'moshev yakaro b'shamayim imo u'shchinatu zo V'gove meromim, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakatuv b'torato, ve'adat hayom v'shevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim imo, Ve'aretz mitachat einod. Ve'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yihye Adonai echad. U'shemo echad.
You may be seated. So we prepare now for Kaddish Yatom, for the mourner's Kaddish, and share these words of poetry. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance and our lives are full. But as night follows day, the candle of our life burns down and gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen, yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. We share the names now of those whom we remember. I invite you, as I read the name of your loved one, if you choose to stand and rise in your place as you honor their memory. We're in Shloshim for Thomas R. Berger, Bella Brenman, Shraga Gestetner, Daniel Nabarro, Mo Samuel, Dovie Steinmetz, Maylor Valance, and Alan Zisblatt. And we mark Yahrzeit this week for Elizabeth Andrew, Samuel Angel, David Asmucha, Hannah Baker, Hershey Bellsberg, Thomas R. Berger, Bella Brenman, Jean Brewser, Monty Breyer, Zelda Cohen, Stanley Cooperman, Gladys Eagles Kahn, Isabel Edwards, Henry Einbinder, Bram Felger, Esther Fogelbaum, Martin Freeman, Esther Froman, Nathan Godfrey, Sam Grandstein, Bill Halperin, Alana Huberman, Toby Cagna, Harold Mann, Helen Martin, Morris Malamed, Max Menkes, Hi Miller, George Minuk, Barbara Minuk, Mina Mukhalova, Dr. Howard Netter, Daniel Nuskart, Dr. Frederick Oberlander, Felice Rabinovich, Susan Robertson, Alexander Savine, Morris Scharfen, Pauline Schiffman, Joshua Struminger, Leon Isaac Tesler, Van Twombly, Cam Wong, Sid Zbarsky, and Rivka Zuckerwitz. Are there any other names to mention for Kaddish? I invite you to say those out loud in your home or in your heart, and all who wish to join and rise with the mourners in these words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, Tadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal shmei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be a blessing in our lives and our world, as we say together, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Brown. Thank you, Cantor Tausig. It's so wonderful to be with you on this really challenging evening in some ways, but it's good to be together for that. It really is. So again, a reminder, our services tomorrow morning are at 10 a.m. Torah studies at 8:30. Join us for Cantor Cohen as she joins our clergy team to help lead the service, and stick around afterwards for the oneg that follows. Lots of stuff going on at the synagogue in the month ahead. Look to our website for those events and activities, and we'll close it out with a song.
Ein Keloheinu, ein Kadonenu, ein Kamokeinu, ein Kamoshienu, Mich Eloheinu, Mich Adonenu, Mich Hamokeinu, Mich Hamoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Hamokeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.